Hi, guys, and welcome to the Unfiltered podcast. I am so excited about today's episode. Not only are we going to be hosting a really amazing guest today, but we are also going to be talking about the subject of growth. And that is a super exciting subject for us to talk about because, change is inevitable. And along with change, we will grow, and we either have the ability to grow towards Jesus and grow towards health and well being, or we also have the ability to really become stagnant in our growing. And that's really what we want to avoid. And I know for me, like sometimes in the past, change has seemed really scary for me, and growing seemed really unreachable. And so today we're going to be asking questions like, what is growth? How do we grow as people? And how do we kind of fine tune the direction that we're growing in? And so a lot of good things today on the podcast. Our guest speaker, her name is Charity Greene. She's actually one of my really good friends, really admire her a lot. She is an entrepreneur. She has her own business. She's a mom of 2 kids, just an amazing person altogether. So I think she just joined the chat. I'm gonna welcome her in. How are
Doing
you?
good. I'm
So
doing
glad to
good. You're
have you
so
on the
beautiful.
podcast. Oh my gosh, so are you. I am so glad to have you on the podcast today and talk about growth. Wow.
I'm excited to be here. This is honestly one of my favorite topics. This week has been so busy, and I was like, maybe I haven't done enough prep for this, but it's something that's so ingrained in me and so part of me that
Yes,
I'm ready to roll. I can talk about it anytime. So,
that's amazing. Why don't you start off and kind of just introduce yourself a little bit and just tell everyone who you are and what you do?
okay. So my name's Charity Greene. I'm a wife and a mother of two. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. And I manage 2 wedding venues in Honeypath. I absolutely love weddings. They're a challenge, and yet they're just so rewarding too to see all those memories being
Amazing.
made. And then I also have a
Yes.
wellness business, which wellness is kind of, I mean, I love weddings, but wellness is more my passion, just wellness of the body, mind, and soul. Basically, because
Right.
of what I've been through in my life, I just have a passion to help others along their
That's
own
awesome.
journeys. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Yeah.
That is so great. I am so excited to talk about growth. It's something that I feel like has really been um, just a really big part of my life in 2020, especially. I feel like the Lord really, allowed some major things to happen, but that
Mhm.
was because, He wanted growth to happen in my life. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people, they look at growth as, or they look at change as a bad thing. But um, before you hopped on, I was just kind of saying, change is inevitable, but growth is
Yeah.
something that also comes along with change. So, my first, question for you is like, what is your outlook on growth? Do you believe that growth is a vital part of life, or if it's, something that really you don't really care about? Like, what do you think about growth overall?
So me 14 years ago wouldn't even know how to answer that question. But flash
Right.
forward to who I am today, and it's like growth is so critical to thriving in life. And like you
Hmm.
said, we're all changing all the time, but really growth, I believe, is kind of optional based on how we respond to our life circumstances. We all have different things going on. This past year has
Right.
been so crazy for everybody. And some people, I think, haven't grown. They've changed, and we've had all these
Hmm.
changes, but they haven't grown. And there's a lot of
Right.
reasons for that. But yeah, growth is it's so rewarding. It's hard, but it's really
Oh yeah.
rewarding and healing.
Exactly. I agree. I mean, I see like I kind of look back over my life and I see moments where like change has happened, but
Hmm.
and like you said before, I really didn't know what growth was. And I would hear people talk
Yeah.
about growth or growing, and I was just like, "Oh, that's interesting," but I never really stepped back and said, "Okay, what is growth?" And like I never realized that you do have that choice of, am I going to grow in this? Is this, whether it's a heartbreak or a relationship failed or, a loss, whatever it is it going to make you a better person, or is it really going to leave you just really empty and lost?
Right.
And I
And
believe
where
that,
like you're
the choice is
where you say,
go
some
ahead.
people can have the same experience happen, and one chooses one perspective and they grow and
Hmm.
they bloom and they become a better version of themselves. And then someone else can have that same thing happen and they take a
Hmm.
different route where they stay a victim of their situation forever. And we see
Right.
that so many times played over. I've seen it so many times played over and over. And it's really sad because once you get in that
Yeah.
victim mindset, it's really hard to break that mold
Mm,
and grow and change. And so they stay,
I
I,
agree.
I wouldn't even say stagnant. They just stay in the same hurt place. And they're
Hmm.
unable to grow. And it's really, I mean, I've been there. I have a lot of compassion for them because I know what
Right.
it's like to be in that place of almost blindness, like you don't know what to
Hmm.
do or how to change. But
Right. Exactly. And I mean, I even remember in my life, like there being times where, and there was a time in my life where I felt like I really lost myself as a person and I didn't
hmm
know how to deal with all this hurt and anger and grief. And instead of really expressing that and, even getting closer to Jesus and walking out my faith, I really stayed in this place. It was very victimizing and it really only hurt myself. And it did pull down the others around me that were trying to help me, get back to myself. But it really is a personal, nobody can, choose for you that you're going to
yeah.
make your situation better. You really have to take that choice, take that leap of faith, and really walk out your faith
And I love
yourself.
how you're kind of wording that because it ties into something that I want to bring up right here at the beginning of this podcast.
Awesome.
If you can't grasp this one concept, you will never be able to grow, and that's vulnerability. If you
Mm,
cannot be
yes.
vulnerable with yourself and ask yourself those
Hmm.
hard questions like, who am I? Who do I want to be? Why am I
Right.
where I'm at? What choices in my life have led to me being here? And people don't want to ask those questions because it hurts. Like, it doesn't feel good to
Right.
say, why am, like, for me, whenever I was overweight years ago, this is a simple, very physical example to
Hmm.
understand, why was I almost 200 pounds? To be able to
Hmm.
lose weight, I had to ask myself that question. And most people don't
Hmm.
stay around for an answer to hard questions because it doesn't feel
Right.
good to look inside. But I
Hmm.
had to ask myself
Exactly.
that question to be able to move forward. And it's like I
Hmm.
mean, when you were in that place, it just sounds like you didn't know who you were, what you believed in, what you wanted to be. And so you're
Exactly.
just floundering and you're just staying in this victim place because it hurts and it's
Hmm.
hard to say, who am I? Like, do I like my life
Right.
right now? Do I like the choices I'm making? Ouch.
Hmm.
I don't. And you have to be
Yeah.
vulnerable with yourself. And vulnerability is like this huge
100%.
topic that could be
Oh
talked
yeah.
about for hours.
Oh yeah.
But
It's like a whole different podcast in and of itself, but it's so
yeah.
vital for growth. You have to be vulnerable and you have to be willing to ask yourself the hard questions and I believe really answer those truthfully for yourself. Even
Yeah.
if, and I feel like an aspect of humility kind of plays into that and
For
even
sure.
change. And I know change is such a huge thing. And one of the questions, I was talking to some friends a while ago and they were talking about change and how they were so scared of change. And so this is like just a question. Do you think we should fear change as a part of growth? I know it's inevitable, but some people are like super scared of it?
Yeah. I don't love change. Like, I have learned to love change. Like, I've taught myself
Yes.
how to really embrace it because it's such a critical
Hmm.
part of growth. But change
Right.
can be scary because it's out of our control, it's out of our comfort zone, and it's just
Hmm.
hard. But the more we grow and mature and are able to just embrace change, even hard change, like things that are happening, we've been dealing with something today and it's really hard and it's not a change
Uh,
we want, but you have to take
right.
it and embrace it and accept it at some point. Now, there's some changes,
Hmm.
yes, you can fight against, like, no, I'm not going to do that and I'm going to stand up for that. But there's some you can't. And those that
Right.
you can't, when you just embrace them and take what life gives you and take it in, process it, and then move forward, you're going to be so much stronger, and you're going to be able to grow instead of being a victim of that change. You're going to be kind of
Mhm.
like almost controlling that change.
Right. That is so true. And I mean, I know for me, I don't like change either. I wish
Yeah.
things would just stay how they were. I like my little comfort zone. I love my little bubble of life. And for me, change was kind of like, I think as you get older too, just part of growing up, kind of like fizzling out of the teen years of life. And you realize, like, oh my gosh, there's all of these big changes. Like, who am I going to date? Who am I going to, where am I going to go to college? After I finish high school, what do I want to major in? Or even
Right.
things such as jobs. Like after you finish college, you're like, okay, what is my job going to be? After you get married, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, start having kids. How do you filter through parenting? Um,
Yeah.
and so I feel like those choices of, okay, you make a choice and then you wonder, like, it directs the path of change for you. And then
Hmm.
I think there can also be a lot of backtracking in our changes. Like, oh,
Hmm.
did we choose the right path of change? And I feel like that's kind of where, like, faith without sight kind of comes in. We can't see, but
Yes.
we have
Yeah.
to have faith that, what the path that we chose, if we're really seeking Jesus, and, the changes that did happen, God is not going to let them grow stagnant or
Yeah.
even, not blossom and bloom if we're really choosing Him and really taking that leap of faith. And I think that's
Well,
such a huge part of it.
I look at the story of like Joseph in the Bible, and he had so many changes thrown at him that were not
Oh
his
my gosh.
choice, and he could have easily been a victim. He was a victim of everything that was happening to him. His brothers
Yes,
sold him, he was falsely
exactly.
accused, thrown into prison. All this stuff is happening to him. And instead of saying, being like, woe is me, I was falsely accused, I don't like my
Hmm.
life, all of that that so many
Yep,
of us
yep.
today who go through like nothing do. Instead of doing that, he stayed true to his faith, kept his eyes on God, and because of that, God had this whole purpose for him. And sometimes that's all we
Mm,
can do is like the next right step, and that those little small baby steps of like consistent baby steps, all of a sudden it might be a year down the road, it might be 10 years down the road, and we see this huge growth, and this way we can impact people that we never dreamed we were going to be able to, but because we just
right.
kept doing the next right thing.
Mm,
And so, yeah, change
exactly.
is important.
Right. That is so true. I heard one of my favorite speakers is Sadie Robertson, and she was actually talking
Yeah.
on one of her sermons. She was talking about the life of Joseph and how,
Mm,
he could have become so, hurt by and, become so victimized in his thoughts that,
yeah.
even when he was sitting in prison and the king needed an interpreter of dreams, he could have been like, I don't want any part of this. This is what got me screwed over in the first place.
Right.
I'm done. I'm out of here. But
Yeah.
instead, he continued to choose to do what he knew
Mhm.
God wanted him to do. And even though the change was hard, and even though it was hard for him to keep pushing on towards growth in that moment, he chose the right thing. And then we see what it did with the rest of his life. I mean, he was
Yeah.
second, to the king. And I mean, it was just amazing to me
Like
to
he
look at that
impacted
and
like
say,
all the nations.
oh yeah. I mean, how
Yeah.
one small choice of growth can change so many things for the better.
Yeah.
And so I
And
feel
he,
like,
like,
change.
I believe like God would have used someone else to do that change, like to do that impact that Joseph had. But
Mhm.
because Joseph was there and he was doing the right thing, he got to have that huge part and that blessing. And so,
I
for
agree.
us too, I mean, when we're just doing the next right thing, we're going to end up seeing blessings, you know, from
Mhm.
our actions and choices, and small impacts and big impacts. And it's pretty cool to see that
Right.
played out. I definitely struggle with being, I mean, I've been falsely accused many times, and
Mhm.
it's hard. It's really hard when people, you
Yep.
know, are saying negative things about you with, destructive motive in their
Mhm.
heart. But I think ultimately it goes back to who is our defender, and not giving all of our energy to those people so that we can grow and continue
Yep.
on the path that God has for us.
I absolutely agree. And I mean, I think that there are, and I think that's a huge part of, like, mental growth. And I feel like there's kind of categories of like physical growth,
Yeah.
mental growth, and spiritual growth, how would you kind of go into each of those categories and define that?
I think so. Physical growth is going to look so, each of these is going to look so different on everybody. For me personally, physical growth was losing weight. And now, and then I've
Hmm.
had two babies. So, losing that baby weight,
Right,
physical growth like looks
right,
like me now building muscle, and not, and then it goes into mental where, I'm learning how to have a positive body image and not be down on my body. My whole life, I was always a fat
mm,
kid, the just I talked negatively to myself my whole
hmm,
life, about body image. So, that goes from physical into like the mental. And there's so many other mental, with business,
right,
asking myself, okay, my business isn't thriving. So instead of blaming it on the Instagram algorithm, I'm going to look at what am I doing that I can change to better my business, to better reach
right,
people, to better serve people. And then, of course, that goes into
exactly.
spiritual, when we're talking about serving people and stuff, like, what is my purpose on this earth? Like, that was a question that just changed my life years ago when I asked myself that
Mm,
question, like, what is my purpose on this earth? Who am I? Like, and that goes into spiritual and what you believe, and your connection to God and that whole spiritual
yep,
arena. For a lot of people that can look like different things, but they're all interconnected. So, and they all need growth. And sometimes you're growing equally with all, but usually one is kind of taking precedent over the other,
right,
just as things have to. But for me, I found, I started my journey really, I would say, when I was about 21 and,
mm,
well, younger than that, I guess, 20, anyways, 20, 21.
yeah,
And I just started realizing like I don't like who I am, but I didn't know how to
hmm,
look inward yet. And so I was focused
mm,
on all physical growth. I need to do cardio to lose weight. I need to learn about what foods, to eat. And I focused on that physical growth,
hmm,
but that in turn turned into this beautiful transition to mental and spiritual growth. And those are the
amazing.
growths that really changed my life, but it had to start with the physical growth for me. So I
Hmm.
think everyone finds themselves, drawn to one or the other, but then ends up intertwining with, all three.
I absolutely agree. I think that's a, I've never heard anyone describe it that way of, you may start with one, but then they all really intertwine and open up
Yeah.
this beautiful path of growth. And that's a really good way. And I feel like a lot of people, they might be really strong in one aspect of growth in their life,
Hmm.
and they kind of look down on everyone else who isn't where they are in that one aspect of growth. And I
Yeah.
don't know what you would think. I know in my life, like I've met so many people before, and even, been friends with people before who they're so really prideful in a way of their one, strong point of growth. And they
Hmm.
think if people aren't where I am, on my mental growth level,
Yes.
then I'm not associating with them. I'm not going to be a part. They're, not going to be friends with me.
Yeah.
And I feel like it can be damaging if you put so much
Hmm.
emphasis on one part. And then, I mean, I feel like we have to realize that everyone's on a journey of growth. I mean, that's what life
Yes.
is. That's what sanctification is for. It's
Yeah.
not like we're going to be perfect and we have to be perfect. We're going to
Right.
screw up, we're going to mess up, but it's
Yeah.
taking those moments and it's turning it into something beautiful. What would you
Mhm.
say to someone who was there and, really, just the whole aspect of looking down on others who aren't right where you
Mhm.
are right in your moment? What would you say to
So,
that?
so I don't really say a lot directly to people that need
Mhm.
change in their life. I usually like to ask questions, if they come to me, because if somebody's not ready to receive a truth, they're not going to receive it no matter how I word it. But when I
Right.
see people like that, I just, I feel compassion towards them because I've been there, like I've already said, I've been there. And so I used to get really
Mhm.
frustrated with people like that. Like, okay, I'm sorry that you're so much smarter than me, or you're so much more
Right.
spiritual than me, or,
Mhm.
compare myself to somebody else's fitness journey. And now I just look at people who are in aspect of growth and how that does make them prideful, like you talked about. And I just look at them and think, wow, they're just not in a mature place on their journey. And I need to have
Right.
compassion on them. And if they, and
Mm.
have that open door of friendship where you cannot take offense to how they're treating you, because someone who is, spiritually immature mentally immature or even physically immature, they're, if
Mhm.
they're not at the same level as you, I think our job is just to have compassion and just be a light to them, because that's going to open up doors where they are going to eventually probably come to you
Mhm.
and ask you questions, and then you can ask them questions back, or if they want advice, give advice back about how they can have more balance in their life. Because if
Mhm.
you're having
Right.
balance in your life and you're this super bright light like we're meant to be, you're going to draw people like to that light that's shining out of you, and then you can impact them.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
I hope that
absolutely.
answered
I
it.
think that is so true. And I think, one thing is for me, I did go through a period of my life where, you know, I was very like judgmental and I didn't mean to be. It was just, how things were done, and I had just kind of like picked up bad habits along the way.
Hmm.
And when I kind of stepped back and realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm judging people and I don't even mean to be, it was I was just heartbroken. But at the same time, when I stepped back and kind of got on ground level, I realized like I can learn from people who I may not think are as far along as I am. I
Hmm.
can learn from people who are, way farther along than I think I am. And it's all a process, I feel like, of just learning and growing and pulling the good and feeling compassion for negativity. And I feel
And
like
being
vulnerability and
humble.
compassion, yes, being humble, vulnerability, humility, compassion, like those are all three huge things that you have to have in my point of view in order to really grow spiritually and mentally. Um,
And I definitely resonate when you said you used to look down on people. That's really how I grew up. And I'm not downing, my family environment or anything. That's just how I grew up, was very like looking down on people,
mhm,
judging people. And, I found myself as like a 19, 20-year-old miserable. And one of the things that I learned about myself was I would gossip about people, judge others, constantly. I was
mhm,
filling my time with that. And when you fill your time with negativity like that, it doesn't leave that
mhm,
space you need to look inward and for you to grow, and instead of flipping
exactly.
it around and just saying, okay, I'm judging them, but what's going on in my own heart, And so flipping that
Mhm,
switch around, and that's where you stop staying, down here in this victim. Because even when you're judging other people, it's like you're the victim of their actions. It's like you're
mhm,
trapped into, I have to talk about this person because they're so ridiculous, they're so evil, and they're,
right,
instead of,
right,
I'm totally free of what they're doing over there. Like I can pray for them and have compassion, but I don't have to be burdened by their behavior by talking about it and, feeding it by gossiping and all this. Like
exactly.
I'm free of all that and their drama, because
Mhm,
I'm focusing on what my path is and what my journey is. So it's not a selfish
that
way.
is
It's
so
not like
true.
I'm focusing on me. I don't have time for anybody else. It's just not
Right,
having time for the negativity.
right. It's so true because when you focus on yourself, it's a freeing thing because I mean, I found that in my own life, being so worried about what other people are doing.
Yeah.
And it's like you lose control of who you even are. And it's like
Yes.
you define
Yes.
yourself by judging others. And it's just such a trap. And it's like a hamster wheel. It just goes round and round and you can't get out of it. And I feel
Yep.
like that's one of the main drag points of growing because you can't grow when you're going in a circle,
Right.
growing
That's
is
right.
point A to point B and it's no spinning around.
Yes.
And I just
And
feel like
that's
that is
like, you have to look at those cycles. Like I love that hamster wheel thing. Like we are all in
yes,
different cycles. Are they healthy cycles?
right.
Are they, a cycle
Mhm.
for now so that you can grow and learn and then move to the, but we're all in these cycles,
Mhm.
and like we don't even
Right.
realize it sometimes. I mean, I still have
Oh
to
yeah.
stop and check in on myself and my cycles, because
Same.
life's so hectic and crazy, and it's easy to get stuck in a cycle of whatever. I mean, there's so many examples. I'm like, do I want to
Mhm.
share these? Do I want to be vulnerable right now? I don't know.
I know.
Um,
I know.
but
There are.
you have to be willing to do the hard work and ask the hard questions to break free from those cycles so you can grow, which is like the
Mhm.
theme that we keep talking about right
Right.
now. And
Exactly.
well, I will say too, expect to have resistance. Growth does not happen without resistance ever. At some
Mhm.
point, you're going to experience resistance. It's like, I mean, when you plant a seed, it has to force itself out of the seed, then force itself through the dirt. There's resistance
Yes.
to be able to grow and bloom. And a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
hit that resistance and it makes them question everything. Like maybe it makes me question sometimes, like maybe this isn't
Yep.
right. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this, and instead of
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. Like the moment I've gotten to the place where I expect resistance, the moment I start a new thing, a new path, a new, I have something just vibing with me and resonating with me, and I'm just embracing
Right.
it into who I am.
Yes.
Like, so for example, how long do we, I'm just going to share this quickly. Okay.
No,
So
no, you're good.
in March of this year, I decided to choose the word unbothered as my word for the year. Now, I don't even always choose a
Mm-hmm.
word for the year, but I couldn't get that word out of my
Right.
head. I literally had a dream about it and I just kept like thinking about it.
Wow.
And
That's
so I
crazy.
put it on my phone lock screen or the home screen. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is my word. I want to learn how to be unbothered. When people are doing crazy stuff,
Right.
when people are lying about me, attacking me, anything, I just want to be unbothered and be able to stay focused on my purpose and my, visions and, anyways, path.
Exactly.
So since March, we have had so many things happen that are very
Oh my
bothersome
gosh.
and very hard to deal with. And it's like I should have
Mm-hmm.
known by choosing this word that there was going to be immediate and deep
Yep.
and hard resistance. And it's some stuff like
Mm-hmm.
I can't even like people are like 2020 was hard, and I'm like, have you met my 2021? Like this year has been
Oh
so
man.
hard. But through that, like my husband was asking me a couple weeks ago with yet another huge thing we were dealing with. He's like,
Wow.
Charity, he's like, I just don't know. He's like, is God trying to tell me to stop? Or is the enemy trying to stop me? He's like, I just don't know what's
Yes.
going on with this. And I was like, take a breath. I was like, first of all, whatever is happening in our life, if it's something bad, I truly believe anything bad that's happening, it's the enemy trying to use it for
Mm-hmm.
our evil. Like, look at Job. That was the enemy. That wasn't God doing all that stuff. That was the
Exactly.
enemy
Oh
trying to
yeah.
destroy him. But because Job stayed faithful, and I told Seth, I was like, we're called to just stay faithful, do the next
Mm-hmm.
right thing. I was like, and doing that is going to lead to the outcome of God using this evil for our good every time, period, no
Every
matter
time.
what. And it's so hard, but that's what growth is. It's staying faithful, even in the hard, even in the resistance, even in the uncertainty. It's staying faithful to
Yes.
what you know is right and true and just following that next step on your journey and your path. Even if you have to take a couple steps back sometimes, but just keep moving
Mm-hmm.
forward as much as you can and just keep doing
Yes.
the next right thing. And you're gonna grow and you're gonna be blessed. But it's hard in the midst of it. But I do think at the end of
That is
this year,
awesome.
I will have learned how to be unbothered because I've had to go through all this.
Yay! I completely agree. I think that's a beautiful analogy. And I was even going to mention before you brought it up, a lot of times I am such a convenience person and I hate it. It's not something I'm proud of. I love convenience. And, even, 2020 was crazy, but
It was
2021,
awful.
we've had, pushback of like
Hmm.
even, little things like my relationships, my relationship with my boyfriend, things from the outside world trying to come in and just
Yeah.
really just disrupt everything.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people have asked me like, if you have to work this hard for something, don't you think God's trying to tell you no? But
Oh,
then I'm
yeah.
also like, doesn't the enemy really, really try to work hard on what
Yeah.
he knows is going to be really, really good? And
Yeah.
so I think, it's the complete opposite. Whenever,
Yes.
now, whenever I see resistance or pushback, it makes me think, wow, God's trying to do something really good.
Yes.
So I just need to let him do it, have that faith that you were talking about.
I definitely agree with you. I don't really align with that belief that, oh, when you have roadblocks, that's God trying to stop you. FYI, the God of the
No,
universe doesn't have to put roadblocks up. He can just stop you.
exactly.
Like, he is
Exactly.
not the God. Like, his love is that drives out all fear of punishment. In First John 4, it says
Mm,
that it drives out all fear. So he's not the
Exactly.
one that's putting roadblocks up for you to fear. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
when people say stuff
Yes.
like that, I'm like, oh man, like you have it so wrong. Like that's not what it
I
is. Like the
know.
devil is always the one that's trying to stop. God is always the
Mm-hmm.
one that's moving us forward. Like it's just read the
Exactly.
Bible, you know. But
It's so true. And all of the, accounts in the Bible, his people had it really rough. Like,
yeah,
really, really, they did. Like, they never really had it prime living. It was always
yeah.
they're going through a trial or a hard time, and somebody's dying and
Oh,
and you could look at that and you could think, how is this even, faith? But at the end,
yeah,
the story goes, they were all blessed. And I just think that
yeah,
should give us such hope for the future, because even though growing is really hard and growing really sucks
hmm,
sometimes, and
yeah,
choosing to be vulnerable and choosing to be humble, but you will be blessed for that, on your journey. It
yeah.
is a promise.
I can just stand up and scream that that promise is real because I know
Yes.
I wouldn't be where I am. Like there was a time, 12, 13 years ago, I had to walk away from friendships. I had to have space from some
Mhm.
family. I had to do things where it was isolating. Like no one supported me except God, and no one, I felt like no one was
Mhm.
with me except God. And it's
Right.
like, I look back at that and in the moment, it was so hard. And I
Mm.
should have quit. Like, and I 100%
Mhm.
believe the only reason I didn't was because God kept being there and kept pushing me forward. But I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have the husband I have. I know I wouldn't if I hadn't
Mm.
grown enough to be ready to be with him.
Yes.
And I wouldn't be the mom that I am. I couldn't run these venues that I run, couldn't help people with their wellness journey. I wouldn't be able to do any of this good that's in my life if I
Mm.
hadn't gone through the hard. And so when people are telling
Right.
me, even with like weight loss, that's something everybody, all these people are trying to do. And they're like, well, it's just so
Oh
hard. Well,
yeah.
I can't do this. I'm alone. I need someone to cook my meal. I'm like, you have got to stand up for yourself because no one else is going to
Mm.
do it for you. You have got to do the hard
Exactly.
thing now because you are going to be
Mhm.
blessed and you're going to have
Oh
this
yeah.
fulfilling moments in your life, but you've got to do the hard. You have to. Everybody has
Oh
to do the
yes.
hard at some point.
Every time. Yes. And I just feel like I just want to end it just on that note, because I feel like that is the message that I want this podcast to be, and that,
Mhm.
even your whole life, and the message that you speak, and even if it's, wedding venues or your health coaching journey, I just really think it's just a message of hope, and to never
Yeah.
give up, because
Yep.
growth is it's not going to be easy. No growth is easy, but it's so vital for your life. And it also, I mean, it just screams hope. And you're
Yeah.
blessed when you do the hard thing, really and
Yep. That's
truly.
right. So good.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I just
Yeah.
cannot tell you how much I appreciate you, how much I admire your life. You are such an example for me. And I'm just so hyped about this episode. It's going to be best one yet.
I love you so much, and this is an appropriate episode for you to talk about too, because I've seen
Oh,
incredible growth in your life, and I'm so proud of
thank
you.
you so
And
much.
I know you're gonna go far because you have the right growth mindset. So I'm excited for you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching the Unfiltered
Yeah.
podcast, hosting Charity Greene. And we hope to see you in our next episode. Bye, girl. Thank you so much for coming
Bye.
on.
Love you.